You didn't ask to be posted at the outer wall today, but here you are, wrapped in a wool cloak that smells vaguely of old stew. Chewing the same piece of dried bread for what feels like hours, and wondering if your toes have finally gone. From cold to missing, the castle wakes up around you, not with trumpets or grand declarations, but with clanging buckets, low grunts from men stretching sore backs, and the unmistakable sound of someone relieving themselves in two. A barrel near the stairs. There's not much glory in this post, but there is routine. There's the way the stone holds on to the morning chill. The way your boots scrape when you shift weight from one tired leg to the other. The way you nod to the same passing servant girl every morning and neither of Lee. You ever speak? So before you get comfortable, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together, into a world of cold battlements, itchy uniforms, and the quiet dignity of doing your duty, even when no one's watching. Take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy this kind of slow, calming storytelling. We'll still be here, keeping watch. You wake before the light. Not because you want to, but because your back insists on it. The bench beneath you is as narrow as your patience and just as unforgiving. Its edges dig into your hips, not cruelly, just enough to remind you you're not in a feather bed, nor even on straw. This is a soldier's sleep, flat, stiff, and shallow. The sort of sleep that rests the body just enough to keep going, but not quite enough to feel rested. You shift slightly. A groan escapes your spine. Your feet still inside your boot stingle from where you tucked them under your cloak for warmth. Your cloak, of course, is barely wide enough to cover your chest. You'd pulled it over your shoulders in the night, hoping it would remember how to be wool. But cold wool, you found, has a short memory. You sit up slowly, not out of discipline, not because of duty, simply because the sun hasn't shown itself yet, and someone has to rise first. The fire's long gone. No embers, no smoke. Just a faint, sweet scent of last night's warmth, like a ghost pressing one final kiss to your cheek. Before disappearing into the stone, you swing your legs down and plant your feet on the cold-packed dirt. They don't make a sound. Everything here is quiet in the early hour, as if the world is still deciding whether it's worth turning the page to another day. You reach for your belt. It lies folded beside your bench, curled like a sleeping serpent, stiff with salt from sweat and rain. You thread it through its loops, the leather squeaking softly. Your fingers move automatically, but slowly, as if each loop is a small ceremony. You pull it tighter than it needs to be. Not because you're vain, you aren't, but because it gives you shape. It gives you something solid in the softness of morning. This belt is not decorative. There's no gleaming buckle, no embroidery, no coins sewn into the leather. Just brown hide, worn smooth where your fingers have tugged it 100 mornings before. You fasten it with a sigh, a soft exhale that escapes you like smoke from a snuffed candle. The tightness is reassuring, a quiet reminder that you're held together, even when you don't quite feel it. You pause for a moment, sitting there, wrapped in the soft groan of waking wood. A droplet falls from somewhere overhead and lands on the stone floor with a sound that's too round to echo. The cold presses gently against your back, not harsh, just firm like a hand resting between your shoulder blades, encouraging you to keep moving. Your armor isn't far. It waits in the corner where you left it, bent at odd angles, dull with yesterday's dirt. You never polish it before morning only. A fool shines a breastplate just to lie down. You stand up slowly, letting your weight shift 1 foot at a time, like testing the floor's loyalty. The belt creaks again as your ribs stretch. There's a comfort in its constriction, as if the tightness keeps the early fog from seeping in. You cross the small room. Your cloak drags slightly behind you, whispering across the stones. Your armor is heavier in the mornings. Or perhaps you are. It leans awkwardly where it rests, breastplate slumped against the wall. Gauntlets stacked like slumbering fists, greaves nestled together like mismatched bones. You lift one piece at a time. Not with ceremony, not with pride, just habit. You slip into the breastplate like someone crawling back into yesterday's skin. The metal is cold and still smells faintly of smoke from the campfire. Mixed with the damp tang of wet hay and horse sweat, the straps creak as you tighten them. Leather and buckle, buckle and leather. Pull, cinch, breathe, repeat, you're not yet fully dressed. But the sound of readiness surrounds you. Belt, buckle, snap, pull, the quiet slap of leather, the dull clink of metal against wood. Not a parade of noise, but a soft, private percussion, like a lullaby in reverse one that wakes instead of soothes. Your gauntlets fit tightly today. Your fingers feel like they've grown in the night. You flex them gently, knuckles cracking like old twigs. The gloves smell of earth and iron. There's no need to mask it. Your sword is last. You never strap it on indoors. That's a rule. Though no one taught it to you, it simply feels wrong. Instead, you check its edge, still slightly sharp, but dulled enough to survive another day. That's how most things are in your life. Slightly sharp, dulled enough, ready in a quiet sort of way. When you push open the door, the hinges moan with the long complaint of age. They don't scream. They don't resist. They've just grown like they've done this 100 times and never liked it once. The cold greets you like an old friend who remembers your worst day. Not cruel, just honest. It fills your lungs before you've even stepped through the threshold. The sky is the color of wet, wool-soft gray, with darker streaks where clouds haven't yet learned how to rain. Your boots crunch slightly on the frost-hardened earth. Not snow, not yet. Just frozen breath clinging to dirt. You stretch once, lightly, just enough to feel your ribs move beneath the armor. It doesn't help much, but it tells you you're still here. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster tries to remember its job. It crows half-heartedly, as if embarrassed to be the one waking the world. You tighten your belt again, though it hasn't loosened. Just in case, you're not the only one awake. Far from it. But no one talks much this early. There are nods, slow movements, buckles being buckled, fingers rubbed together, cold breath turning to smoke in the air. Everyone looks the same in this. Light shapes, silhouettes, quiet people held together by straps, cloth and routine. A boy walks past you carrying a pail of water. His boots are too big, his cloak too thin. He doesn't meet your eyes. Not out of fear, just the kind of focus that comes from carrying cold water too early in the day. Someone sharpens a blade nearby. The scrape of stone on steel is rhythmic. Not hurried, not slow, just necessary. The sound blends with the distant creak of a cartwheel somewhere beyond the wall. There's a rhythm to all of this. A music you've learned to listen for. The kind that doesn't ask for applause. Only repetition. You duck into the corner of a tent where someone's laid out yesterday's bread. It's hard. The kind that doesn't yield unless you're patient or possess very strong teeth. You tear a piece free. It breaks with a brittle snap. There's no butter. There's never butter. Just a smear of something that was once cheese, perhaps. You don't ask, you chew slowly. It gives your jaw something to do. You aren't really hungry. But there's a kind of obligation in chewing, as if you're telling your body, we do this so we can do that. You sit on the edge of a crate. There's something vaguely warm about it, maybe from the sun that will rise soon. Or maybe just imagined. You wrap your cloak tighter. Not because you're cold, though you are, but because it feels like a hug from the inside. And again, you tighten the belt. Not because it's loose, not because it's slipping, just in case. The sun finally thinks about rising. It doesn't do it all at once. It peeks over the trees like someone who's overslept and isn't sure if they're welcome. The sky softens first. Then comes the gold, like warm butter, across the horizon. You squint, not because it's bright but because it feels strange, hopeful. You're not used to mornings that look this friendly. You lean back slightly, arms crossed, one heel resting on the toe of your other boot. There's no trumpet, no flag, no call to arms, just the waiting. There's a strange peace in that, the knowledge that nothing has happened yet, that the day hasn't asked anything of you not. Yet, it will. Of course it will. But for now, you get to exist in the pause before. The page turns, and so you breathe in, slowly, fully, and exhale. Like someone letting go of something they didn't know they were holding. The belt creaks. Again as you shift. Still tight, still holding, just in case. You wake slowly, not startled, not pulled, just gently nudged by the silence. It isn't truly morning not yet. The sky outside your shutters still sits in that deep purplish place between sleep and light. The air is motionless, as if the world hasn't quite decided whether to breathe in or out. You lie still for a moment, eyes open, but unfocused. You can't see much in the dimness, only the faintest outline of the beam overhead, the curve of the wall where it bows inward, and the vague lump of your boots near the door. Still, where you kicked them off yesterday, your nose is the first to remind you of the bread. A faint scent lingers near the hearth. Not fresh bread, not even warm bread, just bread. Old, dry. The smell of flour that's been cooked until it forgot its softness. A hint of onion clings to it, more memory. Then ingredient, you sit up. The blanket slips from your shoulders with a dull whisper, like someone brushing the sleeve of your tunic with apology. The floor is cold under your feet, and you wince, but only a little. You felt worse. This is how most days begin. Not with purpose, not with a mission. Just bread and the thought of bread. The table is more of a plank, really? A wide slab of oak, worn smooth by elbows in time, sags slightly in the middle, where the legs have forgotten their confidence. There's a little wedge of stale bread resting on it already. Left from the night before, waiting like a patient dog, it looks like it always does. A bit cracked along the edges. The heel, gone hard and pale, the crust flaking like old paint. You pick it up gently. It resists your fingers, almost brittle. It's heavy for its size, dense, compact, as though it was never meant to rise. You sniff it without meaning to. Still that same faint sharpness. Onion, maybe leek, definitely flour. You don't ask where the onion came from. It's been months since you last saw one. Someone probably scraped the bottom of a pot or steeped a few rinds in the dough water. It doesn't matter. The smell is enough. Your mind that something once grew. You pull your cloak tighter and move toward the bench by the hearth. You don't bite into the bread right away. You're not foolish. Instead, you take the clay cup from the shelf. It's wide-mouthed and chipped. The glaze has long since faded, leaving it rough around the edges. Like something dug from the earth and half-dash forgotten. The ale inside is weak, thin and faintly sour. It's not the kind that lifts spirits, more the kind that wakes your tongue and reminds it that it still lives in your mouth. You dunk the bread slowly, holding it under the surface like a child testing river water with a boot. The crust bubbles faintly as the ale seeps in. You hold it just long enough to soften the outer layer, then lift it again and let it drip once, twice into the cup. Then you take a bite. It's better that way. Not good, not pleasant, but better. The crumb has loosened just enough that your teeth don't ache. It's still dry in the center, but now it meets your mouth with something like surrender. It doesn't. crumble. It yields. You chew slowly, eyes on the wall. There's a crack running through the plaster. You've stared at it every morning for weeks, maybe months. You trace it with your eyes, like a lazy finger following a map to nowhere. No one else is up yet? Just you. The sounds in the room are small and private. The gentle clink of cup to table. The dull squish of soaked bread between your teeth. The faint sigh of fabric as you shift on the bench. These are not dramatic noises. They don't ask to be heard. The fire in the hearth is out, but some charcoal remains, pale and ashen, but still shaped like yesterday. You wonder, absently, whether the coals will spark again if stirred. You don't move, you keep chewing. The bread gets no softer as you go. Each bite feels slightly more like penance. You chew? Anyway, there is no butter. There never is. You once had some a thumbprint's worth of salted fat, but that was a feast day. Bread and butter is not your normal dot. Today is normal. Today is always. You don't think about softer breads. You've learned not to. There were softer loaves once. In other towns, other kitchens, bread that yielded under your touch like cloud wool. Bread with steam inside. Bread with crusts that sang when you cut into them. But that sort of memory is dangerous. It's too early. In the morning, for hope, it takes up too much room in your stomach. And there's no space for that. Not with this heavy slice sitting like a stone just beneath your ribs. So instead, you chew and think about the bench beneath you. The weight of your elbows on the table. The way the light hasn't yet found its way through the shutter's crack. You let your mind stay on things you can feel, not things you've lost. The bread is always stale. That is a comfort in its own small way. There's no disappointment, no surprise, just a rhythm. You finish the last bite and feel the corners of your jaw relax. Your teeth are tired, not in pain, just done. You take another sip of ale, swish it slowly, and swallow. Then you sit. And you breathe. Outside, the cold presses gently. Against the doorframe, you can feel it through the wall. Not aggressively, just insistently. Like it's reminding you that you'll need to face it soon. You stay where you are. The coals haven't moved. The bench hasn't groaned. The bread is gone. You think, briefly, about sweeping the crumbs off the table. But they're so small. And it's early. You'll leave them where they are. Somewhere down the path, a crow shakes itself awake. You hear the rustle of wings, the scrape of claws on rooftop tile. A low caw floats through the air and disappears before it reaches the trees. You close your eyes for a moment. The taste of stale bread still sits at the back of your tongue. You run it over your teeth with a slow press. It's not sweet. It's not pleasant. But it's yours. The cup in your hand is nearly empty. You sip what remains. The clay smells faintly of yesterday's yeast. You place it back on the table and press your fingers against its sides for a moment, as if holding its memory. The sun still hasn't shone. There's a patience to mornings like this. A slowness that doesn't ask for haste. No one has called. Your name? No one has knocked. No hoofbeats. No bells. You sit back a little. Let your shoulder blades rest against the uneven wall. The plaster is cool, but not unfriendly. You fold your hands over your stomach and listen to it work. The bread settles slowly. Like a reluctant guest finding its place in a crowded room. You let your breath out through your nose. There's no point rushing. There's nowhere to rush to. Even if there were, your boots would take their time. They always do. You've come to understand that. Hardness isn't the enemy. A hard bench, a hard loaf, a hard winter. These things don't break you. They simply shape you. You learn to sit a certain way, to chew a certain way, to wait a certain way. Hunger is different. Hunger has claws. It scratches around the edges of the day. But stale bread, for all its flaws, quiets it, not silences it. Just hushes it for a little while. Like a lullaby sung by someone who never learned to carry a tune but sings anyway because silence is worse. You don't curse the bread. You don't praise it either. It just gives. You wrap your hands around your knees and tuck your chin into the folds of your cloak. You feel the bread in your stomach and the cold in your toes, and somewhere between the two, a strange sort of peace. Eventually, you rise, not suddenly, just with the kind of slow determination reserved for people who know there's more stale bread waiting tomorrow. You brush the crumbs from your lap, letting them fall to the floor. A few cling to the wool. One lodges itself in the crook of your elbow. You flick it gently with a thumb and watch it disappear into the dark. You stand by the hearth and look at the coals again. They've gone quiet. Ash covers them like dust on forgotten books. You don't stir them, you just look. Then you bend. Slowly, pick up the bread knife from the edge of the table and place it back in its box. The blade is dull. It hasn't seen a whetstone in weeks. But it doesn't need to be sharp, not for bread like this. You open the door with your shoulder. The morning greets you not with light, but with a whisper. The air is soft and pale. The world looks like it's been wrapped in linen. A gentle fog rests just above the ground, not moving, not melting. It simply exists. You step outside, boots crunching faintly on gravel and frozen mud. The sky is still undecided. A dove-gray stretch without promise. You tighten your belt knot because it's loose, but because that's what you do. You pull your cloak close again, and then you begin to walk. Nowhere special, just forward. You'll think about lunch later, but for now, you walk with bread in your belly, ale on your tongue, and silence tucked gently around your shoulders, and the memory of stale bread like a stone in the palm of your hand. You sit because standing all day would be madness, and this isn't the kind of madness they let you claim. Not the dramatic, shouting kind. This is the quiet erosion of patience, the kind that hums beneath your skin after hours of not doing very much at all, so you sit. The bench beneath you groans with familiarity. You've shared more hours with this bench than with some of your comrades. It leans just slightly to the left, as if it's grown tired of holding itself up over the scent. Years, or maybe centuries. You can never be sure how old anything is in the guardhouse. The floor feels ancient. The beams above sag in conversation with the roof. Even the nails look like they've retired early. But it's the bench you know best. And today, the bench bites. A splinter, thin and sharp, finds the seam between your trousers and your thigh. You feel it just barely slide in. You don't flinch. You don't grimace. You simply exhale. Like someone remembering a chore they've been avoiding, because movement draws the captain's eye. And in the stillness of the morning, you don't want to become the reason someone else has to speak, so you settle. You shift just enough to ease the pressure, not enough to draw attention. The splinter remains half in, half out. Like an opinion you can't quite swallow, you become still again. A statue with an itch. The guardhouse is small. Stone walls lined with the breath of decades. Every draft feels familiar. Every chill has a name. The window is just a slit wide enough to let the light in, narrow enough to keep the arrows out. Not that anyone shoots arrows here anymore. It's ceremonial now. Your presence. The bench. The spear leaning against the wall. It's all a performance, done out of memory more than need. You glance at the wall across from you. It's damp at the bottom, where rain likes to sit. A few dark spots climb like ivy. Someone once tried to whitewash it, but the effort faded before the lime did. You can still see the brushstrokes and the places they missed. A mouse once lived beneath the corner stone. You haven't seen it in weeks. You wonder if it found something better. You watch the dust dance in the sunlight that slants across the room. It swirls slowly, rising and falling like it's breathing. You breathe with it, the bench beneath you. Creaks not because you moved, but because it remembers when you did. There's a smell to the guardhouse, not unpleasant, just particular. It's sweat, mostly. Not fresh sweat, but the kind that has lingered in wood and wool for far too long. Beneath that, there's oil, the kind rubbed into scabbards and boots. A slightly metallic temps. And below that still, the deep, musty scent of stone that's never been dry for more than a few weeks. You can trace your memories by that. Smell rain-soaked patrols. The time someone spilled lamp oil on the ledger book. The week you dried your socks over the brazier and filled the whole place with the scent of wet wool and ashdot today. It just smells like old air, still and thick, like bread that's had too much time to rise. You shift slightly again. The splinter catches a little deeper. Still, you say nothing. Somewhere behind you. The captain walks. You can tell it's him by the weight of the footfalls. He drags his right heel slightly, the result of a twisted ankle last winter. He never talks about it, just limps slightly and insists he doesn't. His pace is deliberate, never hurried. The kind of pace that says, I've seen enough of the world to know it can wait. He's not cruel, your captain, just ... observant. He doesn't like fidgeting, doesn't like sighing or shifting or rubbing your eyes too hard. Says it makes a post look sloppy. Says a soldier should learn to rest without resting. You've learned. You rest in stillness. In the small relaxations of your toes inside your boots. In the way your jaw unclenches behind a closed mouth. In the deep roll of breath that doesn't move your shoulders. The splinter twinges again. Still, you stay still. Because stillness is a kind of armor, too. Time doesn't pass in the guardhouse. It lingers, it hovers in corners, curls beneath the bench. It clings to the rough fibers of your tunic. You watch the same patch of light climb the same stone on the far wall. Inch by inch, the sun slides across the narrow gap in the window. You don't track it on purpose, but your eyes always return to it. It's the only movement in the room that doesn't creak. Occasionally, someone walks past the outer window. A merchant, a dog, a boy carrying firewood. You don't turn to look. You've seen all their faces before. The splinter presses inward. You shift. Just enough. A speck of dust lands on your knuckle and sits there, like it has nowhere else to go. You resist the urge to blow it away. That would be movement. You're not guarding anything. Really? There's nothing inside the guardhouse worth protecting. No treasures, no maps, no prisoners. Just the idea of order, of presence, of someone being there awake, aware, responsible. You think sometimes about what that means to be a placeholder? A symbol to wear the belt, sit on the bench, hold the post. The spear leans against the wall behind you. It's polished, but the blade is dull. It hasn't seen real action in years. Still, the wood is smooth from being held. The varnish is worn away in the place where fingers wrap naturally. It feels more like a walking stick than a weapon. You've held it before. You'll hold it again, but not now. Now you sit, and the splinter becomes part of you. There's another guard seated across from you. He's younger, less practiced. His feet twitch every so often. He tries not to yawn, but fails. You don't look at him, but you feel the energy. The way he checks the doorway with unnecessary glances. The way he stretches his legs under the table and tries to make it look casual. He shifts too much, and the captain will notice. You almost want to whisper a warning. But that, too, would be noticed. So you stay still. The bench beneath him creaks. He adjusts his belt. You hear the leather tighten. Hear the small catch in his breath as he sucks in his stomach. To make the buckle reach another hole, he's not uncomfortable enough yet. He will be. You've stopped noticing the splinter. That's not true. Exactly. You still feel it, still know. It's there, but it has become something expected. A quiet pulse in your thigh. A rhythm like a second heartbeat. You think about removing it later. When the captain steps out, when the shift changes, when someone brings in the stew pot for midday. For now, it reminds you you're real. It reminds you you have skin and nerves and sensations. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that's all the day offers. A splinter in the leg. A shaft of sun on stone. A cup of lukewarm barley tea, if you're lucky. You glance at your hands. The knuckles are dry. Cracked, maybe. You rub them together slowly, silently, beneath the table. Stillness is not the absence of feeling. It's the discipline of not reacting. You hear the bell sometimes. Not yet. But soon it's rung by the kitchen boy who is always late. His arms are too thin and the bell too large. The sound arrives a few minutes after it should, echoing down the corridor like someone apologizing through a door. When it rings, you'll stand, you'll walk slowly, never rush. You'll ladle your portion into a dented bowl and return to the bench or the courtyard or the shade of the wall outside. But that hasn't happened yet. For now, there's just the bench, the splinter, the slant of light, the captain's slow steps, the other guard's twitching leg, the dust that forgets to settle. You rest your fingers on your knees and hum silently. In your head a tune that no one taught you, a tune that belongs only to long shifts and long benches and the long ache of nothing urgent. This is the shape of your day, to sit but not rest, to wait but not anticipate. To exist in a room that barely exists, you're not bored? That's not the right word. Boredom has edges. Boredom wants to move, to break, to push. You don't want any of that. You want what you have. The press of the splinter, the creak of the plank, the warmth of wool that holds your shoulders even when the room does not. The guardhouse doesn't ask questions. It doesn't expect answers. It just keeps its corners and its smells and its silence. You give it your time, and in return, it lets you be still. That's enough. That has to be. You exhale. A long, slow breath through the nose, the kind that empties your chest without deflating. You, the splinter. It's still there. Of course it is. But it doesn't feel like a wound anymore. It just feels like part of the bench. You notice it before you even open your eyes. That thin, sharp thread of cold against your neck. Not on the surface, no. It has burrowed in, clings to the skin at the base of your skull, where the bone dips slightly inward. The place where hair used to grow more thickly before age or helmets took their share. It's not pain exactly, not discomfort either, just a persistent presence. A suggestion that something is out of place. The cold doesn't sting. It lingers, like a finger tracing an old scar. You stretch in the quiet, slowly, deliberately. Not because there's much room to move there isn't, but because your body asks for it. Your shoulders roll forward. Your back curves. You feel the wool shift. Beneath your tunic, stiff and dry with yesterday's sweat. The blanket slips down your arm. And there it is again, the chill. Not across your whole body, just there. That single spot, like the breeze, has chosen its favorite part of you. The rest of you is warm enough, tucked into fabric and habit. But the back of your neck hits always that place. Always. You reach up, scratch at it gently, but it doesn't help. It never does. Your armor sits by the door, as it always does, waiting slumped slightly to one side, as if it's just as reluctant as you. You begin with the tunic. Thick linen. Not soft, not heavy, but familiar. You slip it over your head. It settles against your chest with a muffled sigh, carrying the scent of your self-sweat, smoke, and metal oil. Not unpleasant, just human. Then the padding. The quilted gambeson, rough at the seams and stiff from weather. You tug it down by the sleeves, wincing as it catches on your wrist. The fabric protests with a low creak. It doesn't want to move. You understand? Then comes the collar. You tie it higher today, lacing it carefully beneath your chin. Not tight enough to choke, but close enough to feel. You smooth it up over the back of your neck, hoping it'll do the trick. But you already know it. One single quotes, then the breastplate. Cold against your chest at first, it presses into you like a frozen hand. But you don't flinch. You pull the straps taut, just the buckles. Shift the weight evenly over your shoulders. And then, at last, the helmet. You lift it with both hands, thumb brushing the rim like you always do, just checking for cracks, even though you know them all by heart. The lining smells of damp wool and iron. You ease it onto your head slowly. There's the weight, the enclosing, the quiet, and still. At the back between the edge of your collar and the lip of the helmet, there's that gap. That little place. The wind will always find. You try not to sigh. Instead, you shrug once. Roll your shoulders again. And accept it. The world outside is gray with morning. You walk toward the outer wall. Boots crunching softly on a frost-bitten path. The air smells of damp hay, old smoke, and distant bread. Somewhere nearby, a fire has just been lit. It crackles quietly, still shy in its flames. You walk slowly. There's no rush. The shift will begin when it begins. And the wall isn't going anywhere. As you walk, the breeze picks up. It doesn't howl. It doesn't bite. It simply glides around your arms, through the folds of your cloak, and, of course, inevitably, up under the rim of your helmet. You pause at the gate. Place a gloved hand on the latch. The metal is cold, but your fingers are used to it. You exhale through your nose. Watch the vapor hang in front of you, just for a moment, before the wind carries it away. And then, with the practiced grace of someone who does this every day, you lift the latch and step onto the wall. Up here, it's always quieter, not silent, never. Silent but gentler. The sounds of the town below are muffled. A soft clatter of a cartwheel. The low murmur of morning voices. The scrape of broom on stone. All distant, all small. You move to your usual place along the parapet. The stones are slick with last night's dew. Your boots leave shallow prints. You rest your elbows on the ledge. Let the spear stand upright beside you, balanced between stones. You don't need to hold it. It knows its place, and there it is again, that cold spot. The wind brushes just beneath your helmet, finding the hollow of your neck like a friend who never asks permission. You raise your collar again. Tilt your helmet just slightly forward. But it's no use. The cold has made itself at home. You stand still. Let it settle. There's a language to guarding a glance, a shift of weight, a hand resting loosely on a belt. You don't do much, but everything you do means something. Or so. You tell yourself. You shift your shoulders, just a little. The cold slips further down your spine, like a drop of icy water tracking along the vertebrae. You grit your teeth, not from pain, just habit. Someone walks the wall behind you. You hear the foot fall 4 steps, pause, turn. Another sentry? Don't speak. No one does. Not up here. The wall asks for quiet. You glance toward the trees in the distance. Their tops move gently, like they're breathing in their sleep. You let your hand drift to the back of your neck. Press your glove into that one cold spot. Just for a moment. Just to say, I know you're there. Then you bring your hand back down. It's strange. how the helmet becomes a room. You're inside it now, tucked away. Your breath echoes softly against the metal. You hear yourself more than you hear the world. A low hum in your ears, the faint rattle of mail, the scratch of wool against your cheek. You can't see much. The visor narrows your world into a slit, a slice of landscape framed by iron and discipline. You blink slowly. The air inside the helmet warms with your breath, but only just. Your cheeks are cool. Your ears, half-dash frozen, but your neck, the back of your neck hits colder still. It's the kind of cold that doesn't beg for attention. It just waits, quiet, constant. You shift your weight again. The armor creaks softly. You become still once more. The sky changes by degrees. A little more light, a little more blue. A soft golden touch to the edge of the clouds. You stand through. You don't move much. You don't speak. Time doesn't pass, it simply waits with you. The cold never leaves. It's always there. That one spot. That one place where no amount of wool or leather or steel can truly protect you. You begin to think it's not a failure of design, just a reminder. A reminder that even covered in metal, even wrapped in linen, even tucked into rules and rhythm, you are still skin and bone, still soft, still here. Eventually, the bell sounds faint, a little delayed, but unmistakable. It marks the hour, not an end, but a turning. The start of the next breath of the day. You don't leave your post yet. The sound is not for you. You wait until the next man arrives. He'll come walking slowly, rubbing sleep. From his eyes, muttering something about the weather. You'll nod, say little, maybe nothing. You'll hand him the spear, or maybe not. He might have his own, and then you'll walk back down. Your neck still cold, your body stiff, but not angry, just ... used. Used in the way boots are used, the way blankets wear out, the way a cup holds tea one morning and nothing the next. Back inside, you remove the helmet slowly, not like a hero in a song. Just a man with tired fingers and a sore chin. The air inside the room feels warmer than it did before. But only by comparison, you feel the cold still clinging to the back of your neck. Even without the breeze, it's there. It's as if the memory of the wind has etched itself into your skin. You don't try to fix it. You just sit. Let it stay, because not all battles are meant to be won. Some are meant to be shared with silence, with stillness, with one small cold place beneath the helmet that always finds you no matter what. It's there when you arrive. You don't look at it, but you know it's there. The bucket wedged near the post, slightly cracked along the rim. A patch of frozen something at the bottom, and the unmistakable dark ring that tells you it's been used for one thing only and not for drinking. It has no lid. It never has, and it sits just out of your immediate path, but never far enough away. You sit on the bench, one boot slightly extended, the other tucked beneath you. The armor clinks faintly as you adjust your weight. You pull your cloak tighter, tug the corner over your knee, and glance once toward the door, then toward the floor, then toward the wall. Never directly at the bucket. You know its shape by heart. The way it leans slightly, like it's grown tired of its job. The way its iron band pinches in, as though it's been struck too many times. The smell, faint but always there, of stale urine, straw, and time. You sit in silence and breathe through your mouth. Winter does not pretend. It does not soften or mask or hide. In summer, the bucket might be easier to ignore. You might open the shutters. Let the scent drift out with the flies. But not now. Now, everything that leaves your body stays in the air. Breath becomes fog. Moisture becomes frost. Smells linger like thoughts you didn't mean to think. You shift in your seat. Feel the padded fabric of your trousers bunch behind the knees. The wooden bench creaks softly beneath your thighs. You rub your gloved hands together once, slowly. But it brings little comfort. Somewhere in the guardroom, the bucket waits. You can't see it from where you sit, but the smell loops back. To you, soft, persistent. You resist the urge to breathe deeply through your nose. You don't need the confirmation. It's the most consistent. Presence on your shift, not the captain. He comes and goes. Not your partner. Shifts change. Faces rotate, but the bucket. Always there. Unmoving, unblinking, quiet. It doesn't care what rank you hold. Doesn't care if you're sick or sore or homesick. Doesn't care if you speak to it or ignore it. It's there to be used. That's all. And one day, when it's your turn, and it's always your turn eventually, you'll walk toward it with slow steps. Loosen your belt with one gloved hand. Kneel or squat or half stand with awkward grace. Hope no one walks in. Hope your boots don't slip. You'll hear your own breath echoing inside your helmet. Feel the absurdity of the moment, dressed in steel, hunched over a bucket. Hoping gravity is kind, then you'll tie yourself up again, resume your post. And pretend it didn't happen. The bucket never pretends. You try not to think about it, but it clings to the straw at its base, to the cracks in the floorboards, to the cloth of your trousers, just faintly. When you sit too close, it clings to memory, too. You remember the time someone kicked it over last spring, maybe, or the time a recruit mistook it for the wash bucket. You remember the look on his face when he touched it, a horror too quiet for words. You remember the day it froze over, a thin lid of ice, slick and silver, sealing and everything beneath. It cracked like glass when someone dropped a pebble in it. You remember that sound, that delicate, crystalline snap, so clean, so brief, you almost admired it. Even the wind knows where the bucket is. It curls around the doorframe, through the shutters, under the eaves, and finds its way across the room. No matter how still the air seems, you sit with your scarf tucked up to your chin, your helmet drawn low, your collar layered double. Still the wind finds you, and it brings the bucket with it, not in sight, but in scent. In sensation, it mingles with the sharpness of the cold, wraps around the edge of your nostril, like something living, makes the back of your throat itch. You adjust your seat again, but you don't stand. Standing looks suspicious, and suspicion invites conversation. So, you stay still and breathe through your mouth. You distract yourself with small tasks. Fingertip checks along your gauntlet straps, a soft scrape of fingernail over the rough patch on your belt. Counting floorboards. Watching the slant of light shift across the wall. You press your tongue to the roof of your mouth. Feel the dry film of morning there. You reach for the clay mug on the shelf, the one that's been cold for hours, and take a careful sip. The ale is flat, tepid, slightly sour, but it doesn't taste like the bucket smells. And so, for a moment, that's a small relief. You close your eyes just for a few breaths. The wind sighs against the shutters. The bench creaks softly. The bucket waits. It's never mentioned. Not in training, not in letters, not in the tales told by the fire. There's no song about the bucket. No joke that sticks around long enough to be funny. Just the quiet understanding that it exists and it's necessary. A necessary shame, a necessary object. A necessary part of the human condition wrapped in cold leather and iron discipline. You've seen officers use it. You've seen the medic avoid it. You've seen a man cry once, not because of war or hunger, but because the bucket had to do in place of privacy. No. One mocked him. Not out loud, you just offered him a cloth to wipe his hands. And you went back to your post? No words, exchanged just silence and smell. The bucket is worst in the early hours, when your stomach has settled into emptiness, when the fire has gone out, and the coals no longer glow, when even your thoughts have slowed to the pace of your breath. That's when the scent becomes sharpest, not stronger, just clearer. You swear the air moves differently around it. That the bucket creates a current of its own. You adjust your scarf again. Pull your knees tighter. You listen to the slow drip of condensation from the rafters, the creak of the wood as it settles around you, the rustle of a rat in the straw, and the gentle, muffled sigh of someone else across the room shifting in there. Sleep or their watch, all of it blends into one slow breath of cold life, and still. The bucket, eventually, you have to rise. Not because you want to, not because you can wait no longer, but because your body insists. You sigh, push your hands against your knees, rise slowly, its armor pulling at your shoulders like a reluctant friend. You cross the room without hurry. You move with quiet shame, not from guilt, but from awareness. Awareness that this moment is shared by everyone here. That no matter who you are today, you are someone who must kneel beside a bucket. You kneel. The wood beneath your knees is cold. The bucket's rim presses against your leg. You let the moment pass. Let it be what it is. You adjust your belt again. Stand, compose yourself, and return to the bench. No one looks at you. No one has to. They've all made that walk. Later, the bell sounds and the sun lifts just slightly through the mist. Someone will come to empty it. Not you. Not this time. A recruit, maybe. Or the one who lost dice last night. They'll carry it with two hands tilted slightly to keep the slosh from reaching the rim. Their nose wrinkled, their mouth tight. They won't speak. They'll dump it in the trench. Return it, wipe their hands, and sit down. The room will smell slightly less, but not clean. Never clean, just lived in. You'll nod at them, maybe, or maybe not. The bucket will be back tomorrow, like always. The stones beneath your silesia can hear your own boots. That's the first thing. Not the sharp sound of marching or the click of a hurried pace. Not the eager rhythm of festival feet or the heavy clomp of armored patrol. Just your boots. Soft. Dragging. Reluctant. Leather soles scuffing over uneven stone. A faint rasp where a pebble has lodged itself in the seam again. You feel it every time you step. A grain-sized annoyance pressing up against your heel, not quite painful, not quite ignorable. You could fix it if you sat. You could take off your boot, shake it loose, even fold your sock to guard against it. But standing is easier than explaining. Why you sat so you shift your weight instead. You roll your foot slightly inward with each step, compensating. You let your gait go lopsided. There's no one to see. No one except the birds. And they don't care. The tower hums, the southern tower coughs again. Not the tower itself. Of course, though it does creak sometimes. Old stones sighing in the wind. Cracks filled with ice. The occasional pigeon winging too close and knocking dust from the sill. But the cough is human. Rough, bark-like. The kind of cough that comes from living too long with damp in the walls and smoke in the nose. It echoes once and then fades. Swallowed by stone. It could be Geron or the older one. You forget his name. Most days, it's not your job to go check. Your job is here. You lean slightly against the inner wall, careful not to rest fully. The captain doesn't like resting, even in the quiet hours. Especially in the quiet hours, the assumption is that you'll doze off, that you'll slip from rest to sleep, and from sleep to negligence, and from negligence to disaster. So you don't. Rest? Not really. But you lean, a soft lean. The kind a man could straighten from in an instant. If steps were heard, just a moment's favor from the stone. It's colder than you expected. Nothing happens loudly. The morning bell rang a long time ago. You counted the chimes. Out of habit, more. The need. 1, 2, 3. 7. And then the pause. The slight lag before the 8th. The bell rope always catches at 8. You've never seen it being rung. The man who does it, if there is a man, and not some creaky mechanism with a weight, has never crossed your path. You just hear the bell. Since then, not much has happened. A bird flew against the window near the chapel and fluttered away unharmed. A lad came up the inner stairwell with a bucket and a bored expression. The bucket was empty when he went back down. Other than that, nothing. Just the day passing, foot by foot, sigh by sigh. The wind forgets itself it's quiet enough to hear the wind lose interest. It was strong this morning, a whipping sort of wind. The kind that claws under your cloak and finds your ribs with sharp fingers, but it died sometime around the 6th spell. Now, it only breathes. It plays with the corner of a rag on the outer wall. It flicks once at the hem of your tunic and then thinks better of. It is not trying anymore. That's something you envy. The sky refuses to commit. You glance up, careful not to crane your neck too far. There's a certain dignity in guarding, and looking skyward for too long feels like begging for distraction. But the sky offers nothing. No drama, no promise of snow. Just a pale washed-out blue with a few stubborn clouds that seem to drift only because they were born to. You wonder if you're like that? Moving because that's what you were meant to do. Not out of desire, just habit, just gravity. You shift your weight. Again. That same pebble presses its little truth into your foot. Still there? Still you. A tune that is in two start to hum. Not a song, not even a melody. Just a sound. A note that isn't quite anything. A thread of noise wrapped around your breath, rising from your throat without being summoned. It's not for others. There's no one to hear it, no one to say, "Ah, that's a good tune," or "Hush, you'll wake the lordling." It's for you, a little proof of life, a sound to anchor you, because the absence of sound has begun to press too close. When all you hear is silence, real silence, it begins to echo, not outward, but inward. You start to hear yourself the thoughts. You avoid the memories you swore you'd leave behind, the small voice that sometimes whispers. This isn't quite what you hoped for, so you hum. Just a shape of noise, it vibrates in your chest. It makes the cold feel a little farther away. The crows take attendance. They land on the battlements as if summoned 3 of them. Maybe 4, but one is hidden, or pretending to be. They perch in a row, not speaking at first. Then one croaks. Another follows. A third seems to comment. DISAPPROVINGLY. It feels like they're taking roll call, like they've been tasked with. Noting your presence, or maybe they're just amused. You glance at them without moving your head. There's a game guards play, sometimes unspoken. Of course, who can stare the crows down longest without flinching? You've never been good at it. They always win. The smell of old clothier cloak has a smell. It always has. A blend of damp wool, smoke, and the sweat of long watches. Today, though, you notice it more because there's nothing else to notice. It smells of the storage closet below the northern stairwell. It smells of mornings too early to remember. It smells of waiting. Not bad, not pleasant, just real, like stone, like frost, like you. Things that move too slowly to see. You look at the wall across from you. Not at it, really. Through it, it's just there, occupying space and thought alike. There's a crack in it, thin, like a drawn line. You've watched that crack for days, weeks. You've convinced yourself it grows. You imagine the mortar shifting, dust loosening, stone drifting apart. You check it each hour, give or take. But you've never caught it changing. It's too slow, like everything else. Breaths that count themselves you inhale. You don't mean to count, but you do. 1 breath. 2. Pause. 3. The cold enters with each one, but slower now. It's not biting anymore. Just sitting. Settled into your ribs like a guest who's overstayed you. Breathe again, just to do something. just to keep the silence from becoming something worse. You wonder? Not for the first time, how many breaths until the bell rings again? A memory without a jest, there's a moment, some time between breath and blink, when you remember something that never had words, a feeling, a scent, a sound of wind through shutters, and someone humming in another room. You can't place the year, or the room, or the person, but it's there suddenly and completely. A soft presence in your chest, not asking to be understood, just acknowledged, like the hum, like the crack, like the boots. A shift that never ends. You don't remember when this shift began. It's always been this shift. In a way, different days, yes. Different weather, different patrol partners. Different orders, but the sameness runs deeper than the details. Time here doesn't move forward, it sinks like a slow snowfall, layering over itself until you can't say where one day ends and the next begins. You scratch your neck, you regret it. The cold finds the gap. You hum again, softer, this time, almost a whisper. The promise of the next bell. It's not that you want the bell, not exactly. The bell means change, yes, but not rest. You might be reassigned, you might be asked to carry. Something you might simply walk the same path, but at a different hour. But still. The bell means time has passed. The world didn't freeze. You didn't become part of the stone. You still hum. The birds still perch. The wind still breathes. And somewhere, the bell waits. Slack in its tower, weight resting, ready to swing, when it's time, and so you stand. Not proud, not weary, just standing. The castle lives around you in its quiet way. And you hum, just a little, just enough to make sure you haven't faded completely into the hush. Another breath, another blink, another moment inside, the sound of nothing much. A shift measured in seconds. You don't count the hours anymore. You used to. In the early days, you'd watch the sun crawl across the sky, wedge it into neat quarters in your mind. Try to trick yourself into believing time could be held like that, manageable, measurable, polite. But the hours didn't care about your math. They came anyway. Long and empty, or short and empty, depending on the wind. Now, you just wait for the next thing. Anything, a bird on the battlement, a cart rumbling past the gate far below, a noise you can almost explain, a figure in the distance, a flicker of movement there, at the far end of the path below the outer wall. Someone moves. Not fast. Not with purpose. Just moves. You notice them before you think to. Your eyes flick toward motion on instinct, and your body tightens, just slightly, out of habit. But then you see there's no urgency. No raised voice, no clanking gear. One figure walking. You narrow your eyes, not enough to be obvious. You don't want to look too interested. The figure is small from up here, not child small, distant small. Coat bundled against the wind. A hat or hood. No horse, not a knight, not a messenger. They walk slowly, as if they have nowhere in particular to be. Just one foot, then the other. The wave without quite meaning to. Your hand lifts. Just a little. A half gesture. A motion that barely qualifies as a wave. You don't expect a response. It's too far. They probably didn't even see. And that's fine. The point wasn't the reply. It was the doing. The little moment of movement. Of agency. Of self. You lower your hand. Slowly. Like a flag being folded back into place. Who it might have been. You wonder who it was. You tell yourself it doesn't matter, and maybe it doesn't. But still, you wonder. A friend from the lower village. Someone you once traded boots with during a flood. The baker's boy, now grown and keeping his head low. Or a tax collector. Come to count chickens and never leave happy. Or a lost traveler who took a turn too soon, too late, too blindly. Whoever it was, they didn't wave back. Or didn't see, you feel no offense. There wasn't enough hope to make space for disappointment. Filling time you. V heard it said that time passes whether you watch it or not. But that isn't quite true up here. Here, time only passes if you do something. You need to give it permission. Feed it a gesture, a cough, a thought, even a wave, so you wave. Not often, not dramatically. But when someone, anyone, moves below the wall, your hand lifts. Just a little, just enough. To mark the moment, to fill it the weight of a cloak you're. Cloak shifts as you move your arm. It doesn't billow, doesn't flap. It just adjusts. Heavy wool doesn't dance in the breeze. It settles. You feel it press against your back and drape into your elbow. As if it, too, has decided not to bother doing anything dramatic today. The hem brushes the stone beneath you, the same smoothed stone that's worn down. Countless boot. Heels. You wonder how many guards before you have waved at strangers. How many times this same corner of stone has felt the idle lift of an elbow. The edge of the wall you take a step toward the parapet. It's just one. Carefully, not to peer down. You're not supposed to lean, just to stand closer, to feel the space. The wall doesn't notice. It is old. Older than you. Older than memory. Unmoved by footsteps, by glances, by casual gestures toward strangers. But still, you step because space feels different near an edge. Even if you don't look over it, wind that knows your shape a soft gust meets you as you shift position. It's not strong. Just enough to remind you it's there. It wraps gently around your shoulder and nudges your collar. It has memorized the dips and folds of your clothing. It flows as if it's been here before, as if it's always here. You close your eyes for a second, just to feel it better, cold. Yes, but not unkind. Not today. You open your eyes slowly. The figure is gone now. Blended into the turn of the path. You hum just faintly. You don't know the tune. You don't need to. Footsteps without urgency, you shift again. One step left. Pause, another step back to where you started. Just enough to feel like movement. Not marching, not pacing. Just repositioning. You scan the horizon, not out of duty, but rhythm. It feels right to move the eyes every so often. Left, then right. Pause on the trees. Pause on the sky. Pause. On a patch of moss between stones, let the world unfold in small, slow pieces dot the gentle tyranny of routine. Even if it's dull, even if it's dull, even if it's aimless, you know the order of things. The meals arrive when they arrive. The bells ring at intervals just long enough to lose track of dot. You learn to live in between the marks, to float in the margins. Some guards talk to themselves, others whistle. You've taken to waving, not often, just enough to say, I see you, or maybe, I am still here. The things you don't say. There's a whole language made of gestures up here. A nod at the shift change. A tap on the parapet to signal boredom. A shrug that says, I heard it too. Ugly. And a wave, the softest one, not to communicate, but to exist. It is a wave at no one in particular. But it is real. It fills a space. It carries the shape of your thought out into the cold. When the clouds drift slowly, you tilt your head back just a little. Just enough to see the clouds above the outer tower. They are moving, but barely, drifting like feathers held in thick syrup. You try to guess where they'll be in an hour. You try to guess where you will be. Still here, probably. Still quiet. Still watching, but maybe. Maybe another passerby will appear. Maybe you'll wave. Again. Maybe this time they'll wave back. You'd like that? Not need. Just like the first warm sip of stew on a chill day. Unexpected, unnecessary, but welcome. A passing bird, blackbird lands just a few feet away. Not startled, not bold. just curious. Its claws click softly on the stone. Its head tilts. Once, then again, you consider waving to it as a joke. You almost do. But you settle for a blink instead. The bird blinks back, and then it hops. And then it flies, and for a few heartbeats, your body believes you've shared something. Even if it was nothing, a small warmth through gloves have thinned. The fingers let through more air than they used to, but there's still warmth. Not much, but enough. The kind of warmth that comes not from fire, but from time, from motion, from familiarity. You shift your hand inside the glove, slow and methodical. You flex each finger. You feel the leather crease. You imagine the seams sighing in relief. Sometimes all you need is that small proof of warmth. That gentle reminder that not everything is frozen. Not yet. The day unfolds without hurry. You don't know how long it's been since the figure passed. Minutes, more, it doesn't matter. The day continues, with or without your marking of it. A soft breeze curls around your boots. A bell rings faintly in. The distance, not one you're meant to react to. The clouds have moved slightly. The crack in the stone still looks the same. A pigeon preens itself on the far turret, and your hand rests loosely by your side. No need to wave, not yet. You will again, eventually, because the seconds stretch out ahead of you, thousands of them. And some will need filling. Warmth where there shouldn't be sun is touching your back now. Not with heat, exactly not the kind that burns or bakes or even warms fully, but with something softer. The kind of warmth that filters through thick fabric and lingers in, creases. A kind of mercy. You hadn't realized how cold you'd been until it changed. That's always the way of it. You think you're managing, and then something shifts, and suddenly your shoulders relax in a way they hadn't for hours. You hadn't even noticed you were holding tension there. Now you do, and you let it melt. The stones behind you soak in. The sun like a cat left in the corner of a room. They hum with it, very faintly. Enough that when you lean back just a little, just enough to feel them through the layers of your tunic and underclothes and skin, it feels like you're resting. Against something alive. Not warm, but less cold than you, which today is enough. The yawn that creeps up quietly, you try not to yawn. Truly, you do. It begins deep in the chest, not in the lungs, but somewhere lower. A welling up of softness. A slow pull you can feel. It building. A flutter at the edges of your mouth. An ache behind your eyes. That telltale tingle in the roof of your mouth. You blink once, twice, you clench your jaw. You roll your shoulders forward, even shift your stance slightly, as though movement might dissuade it, but it comes anyway. Big and lazy. A beast stretching its limbs. You stifle it, of course. That's the rule. The cough that follows, so you cough. It's not because you need to, but because it's easier to explain. A guard can cough. Dust in the throat, chill in the lungs, smoke from the upper tower kitchen drifting where it shouldn't. A cough is practical. A yawn is not. You cough once. It's a soft thing. Then again, more convincingly. Just to sell it, the guard beside you glances your way. He smirks, very slightly. Not a mean smirk, just one of shared recognition. He's done. The same thing. You both know it. No one says anything. That's how camaraderie works, in silence. Midday is not the time for sleep. It's strange, really. The way midday invites sleep. You'd think the dark hours would be the hardest. The late night shifts, the slow cold dawns. And they are. In their own way. But midday lulls. The wind grows lazy. The birds grow quieter. Even the noise from below, the clatter of buckets, the bark of dogs, the shouts of children, it all becomes muffled. Like the whole castle is covered with a heavy woolen blanket, tucked in, and you, standing here, are supposed to resist it. The warmth on your spine, the rhythm of your own slow breathing, the weight of your eyelids. It's unfair, almost, to expect vigilance when every part of your body begs for a little stillness. A little pause. Just a blink, a long blink, a tiny drift. You shake your head. Softly, another cough. More for show than anything. The guard beside you shifts, rubbing his thumb along the edge of his belt. Not quite bored, just aware of the hour, same as you. Stones that radiate memory, the wall behind you is old. Older than anyone you've ever known. Older than the names etched faintly into the plaster on the inside of the west stairwell. Older than even the oldest guard stories. And those go back further than sense should allow. And the wall holds warmth, like it remembers every hour it's ever touched the sun. Like it has learned to appreciate the small gift of daylight when it gets it. You imagine the stones sighing in pleasure if they could. If stone could feel, could relax, you lean again. Gently, you don't close your eyes. But you think about it. Quiet. Sounds that fill the air isn't silent. It never really is. There's always something. A pigeon cooing from under the sloped roof nearby. The far-off creak of a cartwheel catching a rough patch. A dog barking once like punctuation. Then nothing. The sun makes no sound, but its presence is felt. Like a hand laid lightly on your back. Even the wind has calmed. No longer the biting gust of morning. Now it just moves gently across your boots, soft like breath. You begin to sway. Not in fatigue, but in rhythm. There's a music in quiet. If you stand in it long enough, your body begins to move with it. You think of food, then forget the midday bell will bring something to eat. Eventually, you think of bread. You think of stew. You think of how many bites it will take to finish it, and then realize that the thought has wandered. You don't know what you're thinking about now. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. There's a stillness in your stomach. Not hunger, just awareness, awaiting. Your mouth tastes faintly of smoke from the morning fire and wool. And silence. You shift your jaw again. You do not yawn. Not yet. Shadows shrinking slowly if you had to guess the time if someone asked you without a bell. To guide you, you would look to the shadow of the chimney spire above the SMITH. It leans far to the west now, shorter than it was when you arrived. Still too long for it to be afternoon, but growing lazy in its reach. Shadows move without sound, without apology. They do not ask permission to grow or shrink. They simply are. You nod to yourself. A quiet, internal confirmation. Still a while to go. Still more standing. Still more resisting the yawn. The guard beside you does yawn eventually. It's not you. It's him, the man to your left. He yawns, openly, boldly. It's not huge, not loud, but it's there. A full round yawn, shoulders rising with it. His mouth opened only halfway, but enough. He covers it with a fist, then wipes a hand down. His beard as though nothing happened. You glance sideways. He doesn't meet your eye, which is how you know he knows you saw. The corner of your mouth twitches. Not a smile, just the ghost of one. It's fair, you think. You yawned first. Even if you lied about it, now the debt is paid. Moments that stretch thin there. As a strange kind of time that exists between yawns. Long, stretchy time. The kind that bends when you look at it. That folds on itself until 5 minutes feels like 40, then slips by in a blink when you check again. You breathe in, hold it, let it go. You count 10 breaths, then 10 more. Then forget what number you were on. You imagine tying knots in string to pass the time. Like a monk with prayer beads, except you don't have string, only air. And patience. The return of the urjet sneaks up again. The yawn like mist curling back into a valley. Like a dog returning to the doorway after being shooed away. You resist. You clench your teeth softly. Not tightly. Just enough to remind your body that it is not in charge. You hum a note. Low, barely audible. It doesn't form a tune. A sound to hold yourself upright. The sun shifts higher. Warmer now. The wall gives more of itself to you, and your eyes narrow. Just a blink. A long blink. Just the one. You open them again, still here, still upright. Still on duty. The weight of the cloak, roll your shoulders again. Not because they ache, though they do, but to feel the cloak shift, to remind yourself. It's there heavy, woolen, smelling of old smoke and sunlight. The movement is minor, but it changes everything for a moment. The fabric bunches slightly at the neck. The hem lifts off your boots and settles again. The warmth returns to your back. Do you think about how long the cloak has been yours? How many shifts? How many meals? How many resisted yawns? You cough again, softly. No one looks. That's good. The bell finally rings. When the bell rings, it surprises you. Not because you forgot it was coming, but because it feels like it belongs to another world, a louder one. A world of movement and kitchens and trays and spoons. It echoes across the yard, clear, steady. You don't move. Not yet. You let the sound wash over you. You let it mark the end of the moment. The end of the yawn you did not allow. You'll eat soon. And then stand again. And maybe, in the next stretch of sun, you'll yawn for real. Or maybe not. Either way, it will pass. It's the way all moments do. Slowly, softly, like breath. A pot appears as if summoned. You don't hear him coming. He moves like someone with no need to be noticed. A small man, back slightly bent, hands calloused, one foot dragging a little more than the other. He's the one they send when no one else wants the job. Lunch-runner. He places the pot beside the cornerstone with a gentle thunk. Metal on stone. He says nothing. You nod once, and he nods back. That's the whole exchange. Nothing wasted, no announcements, no trumpet of nourishment. Just a pot, a dented one, darkened around the edges with the shape of past fires still scorched into its sides. You know that pot? You've eaten from it before, and suddenly you realize how deeply, unreasonably hungry you are. The steam that rises the lid is tilted, not off, not on. Just set askew so the steam can find its way out. It rises in a slow, soft plume. Not a hiss, not a spurt, just a steady curl. You lean over it, letting the cloud drift into your face. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you feel human again. The warmth is real. Not imagined, not the passive kind you chase from sun or stone, but real warmth, steam warmth, soup warmth. It touches your cheeks and softens the raw edge of the wind still clinging to your nose. You inhale, there's salt, and something smoky. Barley, probably. A hint of old onion. A trace of bone. It's thin, this soup, not hearty, not rich. But it promises to fill the space where hunger has been nesting. And that's all you need. Etiquette. Left behind, there's a ladle stuck in the pot. Iron, not quite rusted, but not new either. Its handle leans outward, as if offering itself. You take it, without ceremony. Without fuss. Etiquette doesn't belong here. It lives in halls with cloth napkins and carved spoons. It doesn't belong in a tower corridor where the wind whistles through arrow slits and your breath fogs even. Indoors, so you sip. Straight from the ladle, the metal is cold against your lip, surprisingly heavy. Faintly bitter, like the taste of old nails, but the soup. The soup is hot. It slips into your mouth and down your throat like forgiveness thin. Yes, but kind. Barley that tries its best, you tilt the ladle to catch more grain. It's barley, mostly. A few green flecks that might have once been herbs, or just weeds. The barley isn't fully cooked. Still a bit hard at the center. You chew slowly. The texture grates, but the taste doesn't fight you. It's neutral. Slightly earthy, like damp linen and wood ash. You imagine the cook stirring it hours ago, half asleep. Wood smoke in her hair. Ladle in one hand, complaints in the other. She didn't have time for perfection, but she made soup, and that is something. You lower the ladle, then lift it again. Because you're still hungry, the shared silence, the guard beside you, the same one from earlier, watches you with a raised brow. He doesn't speak, but you offer him the ladle anyway. He takes it without thanks, not rudely, just in the way that says, "This is how we do it." He sips. He nods. You both exist in that moment. There is no conversation. There is no need. You pass the ladle back and forth, steam rising with each dip. The silence is the kind that speaks clearly. We are tired. We are cold. We are eating. This is enough. A spoonful. Of memory, the soup reminds you of something. Not a specific time, not a feast or a particular stew. Just a memory of being fed, of holding something warm, of slurping and chewing and pausing with the bowl in your lap, of your hands wrapped around. Something solid and dependable. A ceramic bowl, a wooden spoon, a face across the table. You don't remember the face, but you remember the feeling. That softness, you think maybe that's what soup is meant for, to carry you. Briefly, to a memory that never needed words. You sip again. The smell that clings even after you stop eating. The smell lingers. Not just in the pot, in you it clings to. Your gloves, to your breath, to the back of your throat, salt and smoke and broth and iron. You press the ladle gently against the side of the pot, letting the last few drops roll off its curve. They land with a soft sound, not a splash. More like a murmur. The steam is thinner. Now, the heat less bold, but it still rises. Still offers something. You place the ladle back where it was. The handle sticks out at the same angle. An invitation for the next soul. The aftertaste of gratitude didn't expect to feel grateful. Not for this. Not for barley soup in a dented pot with a ladle that tastes like coins, but you do. Not loudly. Not in the kind of way that makes you. Exhale and say blessed like a prayer, just in a quiet, grounding way. Like when you sit on a bench that holds your weight just right. Like when a boot doesn't pinch where you feared it might. Gratitude as presence. Gratitude as breath. You feel full. Not because the soup was rich, but because something in you has been acknowledged. You were seen. And you were fed. The pot stays behind you. Don't take the pot back. That's not your role. It sits beside the wall, cooling slowly. It will be picked up by another set of boots. Another pair of hands that don't speak unless spoken to. You nod at it, as if thanking it directly. It gave what it could. You received what you needed. Not everything has to be grand, or remembered, or sweet. Sometimes a dented pot of barley soup is all the glory the day requires, and that's more than enough. A belly that feels less empty, the hunger isn't gone. Not fully. But the sharpness has dulled. You no longer feel the cold pressing into your ribs. The inside of your chest feels padded again. The edge of your thoughts has softened. You rest your back against the stone, and for a moment you feel just barely warm. You close your eyes, not to sleep, just to sit inside yourself. You let the moment stretch, then you open your eyes again. The guard is looking forward, not at you, not at anything, just forward. The pot is still steaming, just barely. The privilege it's not that the soup was remarkable. It wasn't. You've had better. though not recently. But it was yours for a moment, yours to taste, yours to hold, yours to share. And that's a kind of privilege. Not the loud kind, not the kind that brags, but the quiet kind. The kind that exists without explanation. The privilege of soup with a ladle, of standing in. The cold and being handed warmth without needing to ask. It doesn't last. Nothing does, but you had it. And now you carry it. The ledge above the inner yard, there's a quiet stretch in the stone. Just above the inner yard, where the sunlight pools longer than elsewhere. The ledge is narrow, cracked in places, dusted with wind-blown straw and the forgotten remnants of feathers. And there, without fail, the pigeons gather. 3 of them, usually, sometimes 4. Or 2, you never see them arrive, but they're always there, tucked beneath the overhang. Half in shadow, half in warmth. They sit like royalty, backs puffed, beaks tucked, not haughty. Exactly, comfortable, UNBOTHER, as if the entire castle were a structure built solely to cradle their feet. You watch them, more often than you admit. More than you probably should. The urge to move you stand for long hours. Still, straight, as still and straight. As a man can be with wind finding the corners of his ribs and boots that lost their softness to winters ago. But stillness invites thought, and thought can be tricky. It curls inward, it loops. It begins to echo dot. So sometimes you move, not out of need, not from duty, but from the simple desire to act, to do something, even if it's foolish. Especially if it's foolish, you glance toward the pigeons again. They haven't noticed you noticing them, or maybe they have, but they don't care. That's what makes them bold. That's what makes them tempting. The bow you barely use you. Carry a bow, light, curved, functional. Not meant for war, not today. It hangs from your shoulder more as a symbol than a tool. 'Tis real. Its string is taut, its body smooth and worn from palm and sweat and the occasional idle caress. You unhook it, casually. Without ceremony, it feels strange in your hands. Familiar, yet distant. Like shaking hands with an old friend after too much time apart. You reach behind you, you pull a single arrow. Not a broadhead, just a simple one. Feathers fletched in mismatched grays. You knock it without thought. Your fingers know the motion. The bow hums faintly as the string tightens. It does not question your purpose. Aiming without intention, you raise the bow slowly. You do not draw fully, just enough. You squint. The sun is behind the clouds now, making the ledge seem farther than it is. The pigeons are still. One shifts its feet, another ruffles its wings, then settles again. You pick the space between them. Not one or the other, just the space. An imaginary thread stretched taut between 2 sleeping birds. You hold your breath, for no reason but tradition. You aim, sort of, then you release, the arrow that misses its sails. Not far, not straight. You see it wobble. You feel it drift even before it clears the ledge, and then the clatter. The hollow, ringing echo of wood. Against stone, somewhere below, you didn't even watch it land. It doesn't matter. The pigeons erupt, wings flapping like bellows, feathers bursting into the air. They don't go far, just up, just away, just enough. They make no noise, just the wind and the wings and the sudden absence of their bodies. You lower the bow, slowly, your face remains neutral. Expressionless, but inside, you are smiling. The act of pretending you clear your throat, shift your stance, tuck the bow back, into place. All with the precise timing of someone who has not done anything at all. You glance toward the guard on the other end of the walkway. He looks your way, raises an eyebrow. You shrugged. Then, with all the solemnity of a court witness, you gesture vaguely toward the sky. a kind of theatrical motion. Just aiming high, your shoulders say. Just checking trajectory. Just practicing the arc. He huffs. Not quite a laugh. More of a dismissive puff of air. He turns back. The moment dissolves. You're left alone, with a fading flap of wings and an arrow you no longer care to retrieve. The arrow below could get it. You know that? You could descend the spiral stairs, walk across the yard, explain yourself to whoever's watching the chickens, dodge the wet patch near the well, and collect the fallen shaft. It's not broken. You know that too. It landed wrong, but not disastrously. A scratch, maybe. But you don't move, it isn't worth the effort. Not today. Not for one arrow. Not when the pigeons are already gone. Some stable boy will find it later. Or the cook's son. Or no one let it lie. The sky that watches quietly, you look up. Not for drama. It's to stretch your neck. The sky is pale. Not blue, not gray. Just that in-between color it wears when it's thinking. No sun, no shadow. No movement in the clouds. The kind of sky that neither approves nor disapproves. Simply observes. Patiently, without judgment. You appreciate that. A sky that minds its own business. That doesn't demand answers. You breathe once. Slowly, the wind carries a feather past your face. Soft, gray, gently tumbling. Like a punctuation mark drifting in slow motion. You let it pass. The memory of a roost you think about a time a long time ago. Maybe when you climbed up into a barn too. Look for eggs. There'd been pigeons there too. Same bobbing heads. Same indifference. You were younger, your bow smaller. The target's more obvious. You missed, then too. But you laughed about it. And no one expected better. Now, missing feels like a secret, like something to disguise, even when no one cares. Even when no one saw. You shake the memory loose, like dust from a sleeve. Let it float away. You stand still again, the bow is slung back into place. The pigeons are gone. The moment, like the arrow, has passed. And so you resume. Stillness. Watching, breathing. But something feels different now. The edge has dulled. The rhythm has returned. The sky continues. The yard continues. You continue, and in a strange way. The clatter of the mist shot still lingers, not loudly, but gently. Like a story only you know. A page folded in a book no one else reads. You don't need the arrow. You needed the gesture. End of the hour, the bell hasn't rung. Not yet. But you know it will. You feel it approaching, the way a horse knows the shape of the next stone in the path. And when it comes, you'll step away, or turn, or walk, or not. But for now, you stand. One arrow short. No pigeons in sight. The ledge is empty. The sky is unbothered. The silence is wide, and the bow rests against your back a little looser than before. The 6th hour there is a point always around the 6th hour when your posture betrays you. It doesn't happen with ceremony. No dramatic crack of the spine, no final sigh. Just a quiet letting go. Your shoulders no longer hold the line they were asked to. Your chin drifts forward, then slightly down. Your knees lock without being asked, and your weight shifts to the heel of one foot, then the other. It's not collapse, not defeat, just surrender. The body's gentle, exhausted compromise. You can keep standing, yes, but perhaps not as proudly as you did when the sun first rose. And no one calls you on it. Not now. Even the captain, if he passes, pretends not to see, because he knows. Everyone knows. This is the hour of the afternoon slouch, where the sun no longer helps earlier. The sun had done its part. Its warmth found your back. It kissed the stones, made the cold easier to ignore. But now it's past that angle. Now, The light lands where you aren't. The shadows creep up the wall, not down it. The warmth is out of reach. A memory just a few feet away, so you shift your weight again. You lean slightly against the inside edge of the walkway. Not fully. It's just enough your spine curves. Not into pain, but into something softer. My softer. Something. Permissible. Something human. The wind moves around you differently now. Less as a test, more as a reminder. The sound of quiet muscles. You notice things more when you're like this. When you've stopped trying to hold yourself upright in the formal way, the gentle pull behind your knees, the quiet ache in your calves, the places where your cloak folds sharply into your hip. You become aware of your own weight, as if gravity is taking more of you than it was earlier. Even your fingers feel heavier. They don't curl as sharply. They hang, content to be forgotten. You listen to your own breathing now, in and out. Like a tide, you breathe, and the world breathes with. You, dreaming without sleeping your eyes, remain open. But you are dreaming, not vividly, not wildly, just gently. You imagine things you'll never say aloud. Soft grass, a blanket not made for war, a basin of warm water, not to bathe, just to place your hands in. The dream has no narrative. It doesn't need one. It's more like a texture, a soft, mossy thought. A field in your mind where time doesn't keep you standing. Your gaze drifts, not to anything in particular. The sky, the edge of the tower, a distant bird. None of it holds your attention, and that is what makes it restful. The position that everyone knows you are not alone in this posture. It's a shared position, a quiet pact among guards. The afternoon slouch, every man on duty has found it at some point. They've leaned, they've drooped. They've dreamed with open eyes. You've seen it in others. The soft buckle of a spine near the courtyard gate. The shift of hips on the north parapet. The sigh that means I'll straighten up when I hear boots, but not before. You wear the same expression now, not defiance. Just coexistence with fatigue. And if someone were to look your way, they'd understand. They might even nod, because they've been there. Maybe they still are. A stiff breeze, gently ignored the wind, finds your ear. It brushes past your collar, whispers something about alertness, about vigilance. But you don't answer. You simply shift your cloak tighter, lifting your shoulders. Slightly, just enough to hold back the chill. You've grown used to these interruptions. They arrive and pass. They ask nothing more than acknowledgement. You give them that. A tilt of the head. A blink dot, then you return to the quiet slope of your spine, back into that long curve of acceptance. The weight of your helmet, you become aware of the helmet again. The way it presses against your forehead, it's rim-biting just slightly above your brow. Not painful, just constant. It's heavy in a way that changes as the day grows longer. Earlier, it was part of you, natural, expected. Now, it's an object, perched, demanding. You adjust it with one hand. 2 fingers at the strap. A soft lift, a roll of the shoulders beneath. You could take it off, but you won't. Not yet. Not unless told, so you bear it. The same way you bear the rest. With small movements. With patience, not with surrender. Imagined. Comforts you. Imagine a chair, not a fancy one. It's just a plain stool. Low to the ground, solid. You imagine sitting. Just for a moment. Feet flat, back loose. Hands on knees. You imagine a basin of water. Not cold, not hot, just right. You imagine dipping a cloth in and wringing it out over your face. You imagine clean linen. A cup of something that doesn't scald, to dry place. You don't imagine these things because you expect them. You imagine them because they give the hour shape. Something to lean your thoughts on. The way you lean your body now. The sound of afternoon. It is not quiet. Not entirely. You can hear the castle breathing. the distant rattle of firewood being stacked. A child's laughter too far away to be urgent, close enough to be real. A dog's bark, muffled by stone. The echo of footsteps in a stairwell you're not responsible for, and over it all, the wind, softer now. Less a howl, more a hush. It moves through the courtyard like a memory. It touches everything, your cloak, your cheek. The little notch in your boot, nothing is still. Even the slouch sways, just slightly. You think of nothing in particular, your mind wanders. Not to anything dangerous, not to anything dramatic, just little things. The way the stone feels under your boot, the way your fingernails are just a little too long. The itch on your calf you can't quite reach. You think of bread, not because you're hungry, but because you remember its texture. You think of your last letter home, though you didn't write it. Just composed it in your head. You think of voices you haven't heard in seasons, not missing them, just naming them, like tracing initials in dust. These are not heavy thoughts. They are just background, companions to the hour. Letting it be, let the slouch settle. You don't fight it anymore. You accept the shape you've become. Your body no longer pretends. It is simply being, not failing, not falling, just softening, yielding, resting within its own limits. You are still upright, still alert, technically, but you are also at peace. This is what the 6th hour offers, a soft pact between duty and fatigue. A quiet middle place. You breathe in. You breathe out. You do not move. The bell will come eventually. A bell will ring. It always does. It will echo through the corridor, bouncing off every stone. It will call you forward, remind you of time, of roles, of rhythm. And you will rise from the slouch. You'll press your spine straighter. Shift your shoulders back. Reclaim the figure they ask of you. But not yet. For now, the bell is just a promise, a line on the horizon. And you are allowed this posture, this stillness, this hour, the hour of the afternoon slouch, where nothing is demanded, where everything breathes. The pinch you know best, they don't start hurting right away. At first, you walk, you stand, you shift, and the boots simply exist. Heavy, stiff, silent companions at the ends of your legs. But then the pinch begins, not sharply. Not enough. To cry out, just a slow ache. A firm pressure at the toe, where your second toe curls a little to avoid the seam. A scrape at the heel, where the leather never quite learned your shape. You've tried to soften them, stuffed them with wool, smeared them with animal fat, pressed hot stones inside them, once on a foolish whim. They remain the same, a size too small or a shape too wrong. But they are boots, and boots are precious, and that is enough to keep them on your feet. A wiggle every hour. You've built a routine around the pain. It's almost comforting now, a ritual as sure as any bell. Once an hour, you shift your weight to your left foot. Lift your right heel and slowly curl and uncurl your toes. Then the other side. A wiggle, a stretch. A pause, it doesn't ease. The pain, not really, but it reminds you it's still there, which oddly is reassuring. Because pain means blood is moving. It means nerves are speaking. It means the toes, however cramped, are still yours. If it stopped, if your foot went numb, that would be worse. The sound they make, your boots have a sound, not a noble clack or a heavy march. No, your scuff. They drag slightly when you're tired. They creak faintly when you shift. They whisper along the stone when you try not to wake a sleeping world. It's the sound of worn leather, stiff at the edges, cracked along the sole, sometimes on the colder days you think they sound like bark, dry and layered, folding against itself. Or like a very old door being asked to open one more time. You've grown fond of the sound, not because it's pleasant, but because it's yours. You can recognize your footsteps in a corridor full of echoes. That creak is how the castle knows. You're still moving. The smell beneath the laces, you don't remove them often. There's no good reason. And plenty of small, uncomfortable ones. But on the rare days when the boots come off, when you're finally able to sit by the fire, or lie in your shared cot, when you tug the heel loose and peel the damp wool from inside, you smell them. The leather, yes, but also wool and earth. And sweat from days ago, dried and returned. The scent is not foul, but it is honest. It tells the story of days spent. Standing, of cold floors, of shifting weight, of patrols and pauses. You sometimes hold one in your hand and press your thumb into the toe. Feel how it resists. Remember the press of stone through its soul. Then you set it down beside the bed, facing forward, always forward. Someone else's before you weren't the first to wear them. You can tell. There's a bend in the arch that isn't yours, a bulge near the outer heel, a pattern in the wear that belongs to a different gait. The boots belonged to someone taller, or wider, or with stronger ankles. But when they were handed to you, there was no discussion. They were boots, and they were not yet holes. That was all that mattered. You didn't ask where they came from. You didn't ask who they used to be. You just laced them tightly twice around the ankle, double knot, and you walked stones through the sole of stones. In the yard aren't sharp, exactly, just uneven, old weathered by centuries of footsteps. But you feel them through the sole. There's a place near the front gate where the stones shift, a patch that's never quite level. You step there often, but never intentionally, and every time. The edge of one stone finds the softest part of your boot's bottom. Right beneath the ball of your foot, you wince, silently, almost fondly. That pain, too, has become familiar, like a greeting from the ground, a handshake from the stone. It reminds you that you are here. Still standing, rain finds its way in. The boots are not watertight. They once were, or they were meant to be. But now, if the rain comes hard, sideways, or driven by wind, you feel it. A slow seeping at the arch. The chill creeping upward from heel to sock. It doesn't flood. Just settles. Soaks your foot, becomes a small swamp. Contained, warmed by the rest of you. You don't complain. There's no one to complain to. And even if there were, they have. Wet feet to dot, it's not about dryness. It's about endurance. The art of shifting weight you've learned tricks. You never stand square for long. You roll your foot slightly inward. Lift one heel, then the other. Rock gently on your toes. Not enough to be noticed. Just enough to stay sane. Shifting weight becomes a meditation. A silent rhythm. A language your body speaks to itself. Pain left. Relief, right? Balance again, and when it gets too much, you lean just so against the inner wall. Let your boots rest beneath you, instead of around you. Even boots need a break. The laces, no youth laces, are frayed, split in two places, knotted back together. One lace is longer than the other. You don't know why, but they hold. You pull them tight each morning. Not too tight, you've learned. There's a sweet spot. Firm, but forgiving. They creak a little as you tug. The holes they pass through are stretched thin. You work slowly. The laces are not strong, but they've survived, and that means something. They know you. They know how you tie. They know when you're rushing, when you're aching. When you're praying the boot will feel softer today. It never does, but the laces still do their part. Dreams of bare feet. Don't think about walking barefoot on cold stone. That would be madness. But you think about not wearing boots. You imagine soft grass underfoot, dry hay, warm dirt after a summer rain. A floor made of worn wood, smooth as skin. You think of a stream, not deep, just enough to stand in, cool, not cold, moving just enough to carry the pain away. You don't expect these things, you just dream them. And then, when the dream fades, you curl your toes again inside the cramped leather, still there, still yours, still waiting for the next step. The end of the day eventually, the day ends. Not quickly, not dramatically, just ends. You sit or lie, or lean too long in the corner of a guard room where no one tells you to move. And then, slowly, you remove the boots. It is not pleasant. It is not graceful. You tug, you pull. You've grown softly. One boot, then the other. The heel resists, the toes. Complain, and then they're off. Your feet are free. Not painless, but free. You rub them gently. Wiggle each toe like it deserves a name. And for a little while, just until the next call, you rest. The shift before the sky turns the hour is not special. It's the kind of time that happens whether you notice it or not. The part of the day where most things slow without really stopping. Like the quiet after a cart has passed or the hush between two gusts of wind. You're not counting hours, not out here. Not really. You measure by the weight of your feet, the way your hands tighten and relax around the shaft of the spear. By how your breath looks when you let it out slowly. You've been on this post for most of the day. The cold pressed in early and hasn't let up. There's a numbness to the stillness now. Your legs ache, but in that way, that isn't quite pain. More like a reminder that they're there, supporting you, balancing you, holding your patience up like a tired piece of wood balanced against stone. Your fingers, you check them every so often. Not because you expect frostbite, but because it gives them something to do. You rub your gloves against each other. The scratch of wool and leather catching faintly in your ears. A quiet sound, a comforting one. Familiar. Your back rests against the stone wall, and it gives nothing in return. The cold of it seeps through layers. Your cloak's thick, but age has thinned it in places. The threads stretch near the shoulders, where dampness once sat too long. You think about patching it? Maybe tomorrow, maybe not. For now, you stay as still as the wall behind you, breathing slowly, watching nothing in particular until you blink. And then it's there, a strip of color, faint, quiet, softly surprised to be noticed. The first in kids, not dramatic. Not the kind of thing someone writes about in old songs or sings under their breath with the smell of wine in the air. No. This is smaller than that. The kind of color that forgets to announce itself. Just a streak of pale pink across the blue-gray clouds, like someone spilled blush water across parchment. Like someone sighed gently into the sky. You almost miss it. You nearly look away, as you've done every day before, but you don't. Not. This time, you let your gaze settle into it, the same way your body leans against the spear. You're not expecting anything, just letting your eyes rest. There's no performance, no build-up. It's just light, changing. The air hasn't warmed. If anything, it's colder now. Your breath leaves you in thin ribbons, curling up in front of sit. Your nose before vanishing into the stillness. But the sky, it is decided, very gently, to soften. Standing still on uneven ground, your boots are planted in soil that never quite flattens. One rock under the left heel. You shift now and again, letting the discomfort pulse in and out like a tide of your own making. Sometimes you swear the ground itself sighs under your weight. You lean on your spear. It's not because you must. It's more for the rhythm, the feel of it in your palm. Smooth in some places, chipped in others. There's a scratch halfway down from where you dropped it last winter, slipping on frozen moss. You know the mark. You run your thumb over it absent-mindedly. The clouds stretch. Wide today, long and low. Not heavy enough to snow, but thick enough to hold the cold in place. They catch the fading sun like old wool, catching dust unevenly in little patches. You spot purples now, blending behind the trees. You wonder, quietly, how long it's been happening. How many evenings just like this passed by while you were busy watching the gate, or the wind, or nothing at all. You think about how many sunsets don't get witnessed. How many just fade into night alone. A part of you feels sorry for them, but not this one. This one has you. The smell of cooling stone. There's a smell to the air when the sun begins to bow. Not just cold, that stays all day, but something softer, earthier, like cooling stone or old bark after frost. The kind of scent that doesn't rise up to meet you. You have to lean into it, and when you do, it's everywhere. In the folds of your cloak, the lining of your sleeves, the threads of the scarf wrapped 3 times around your neck. You take it in slowly, through your nose, through the back of your throat. The way a shepherd smells his sheep from across a fence, or how a cook knows the stew's too close to done just by scent. Evening has a smell. And tonight, it's subtle pine, warmed once and cooled twice. Frozen lichen, a trace of smoke from some far-off chimney. You turn your head slightly, eyes half-lidded, just to let your face meet it. It isn't warm, but it's something. And sometimes, something is enough. What the walls don't say behind you, the wall remains unmoved. You've leaned against this same stretch of stone for months now, maybe years. Time becomes strange when your days echo each other like footfalls in an empty corridor. The stones are smooth where they've been touched too often. It's rough where they haven't. Some edges catch on wool. Others press into your spine until you shift just enough to forget them. You know the cracks now, not by name, but by feel. One near your left shoulder, another at elbow height. You rest against them like they know you too. You think, briefly, about the men who laid these stones. The ones who shaped them with quiet hands and lifted them into place with grunts and bent backs. You imagine their sweat, their laughter, their curses, swallowed by wind. You wonder if they ever stopped to watch a sunset like this one. You hope they did. The final stretch of light tits deeper now, the color. Not bright, not showy. Just a more serious kind of pink, edging into orange. It clings to the bottom of the clouds like it's afraid of falling. The tops have gone gray-blue again, cold, distant, but just above the trees, there's that one strip. A line of light so soft, it might be a dream. It draws your eye like a thread pulling you forward, but you don't move. You just watch. Unblinking, slow, the trees in the distance have stopped being trees. Their silhouettes now black lace against a sky painted with hush. You don't speak. No one does. There are sounds, of course. A bird calls once, then stops. A door creaks far off down the path. Something metal clinks where the kitchen lads are cleaning the last of the spoons. But it all feels like part of the same long breath, a pause the world takes together. You let yourself breathe with it. Spear against the ground, your arm is tired now. The kind of tired that doesn't throb, just hums beneath the skin. You lower the spear slowly until its iron point rests against the earth. The sound it makes is soft, a hush against packed dirt and pebbled frost. You hold it upright still, hands around the worn grip. There's no reason to raise it again just yet. It stands beside you, the way a silent companion might, not offering words, just presence. You've stood beside this spear longer than most people. You know its balance, its weight. The way the leather wraps twist inward toward the hilt. The bit of thread you tied near the top so you'd know which one was yours in a pile. You stare out at the light still clinging, still soft. And for once, you don't think about tomorrow, or your aching knee, or the broken buckle you keep meaning to fix. You just watch, because right now the sky is doing something rare. not unusual, just rare to see, and you are here, and you saw it when the colors fade. Doesn't vanish all at once, the pink softens. First, sliding into a kind of dull peach, then into the faintest kind of yellow-gray. The kind that only shows if you really look for it. You do? Then the trees return. Not with sound, not with motion, just with presence. The silhouettes thicken. The clouds begin to lose detail. You close your eyes for a second. When you open them, the color is nearly gone, but the memory stays, quiet and full. Like a bowl you didn't realize you were holding. Suddenly heavy with something sweet. You sigh, not the kind of sigh that means anything. Just air leaving your body. Just breath you don't need to hold anymore. And in the quiet that follows, the first star shows up. It doesn't twinkle, it doesn't sparkle. It just is. And you nod to it, as if to say, I see you too.